Hi everyone, I thought this would be a little bit easier. I know how much you guys love when I read to you in class, so I'm going to start to try to do this as much as possible with the reading comprehension that we have for class. I'll try and read it for you. You can then download it on Course Classroom and answer the questions that always come with our reading. So I'm going to be reading off of my iPad. So we're going to read about Peter the Great today. I'll go down the left-hand side first, and then down the right-hand side. So Peter the Great is we're going to be talking about absolutism again. We're going to go back and forth between absolutism and probably slavery, just to keep things a little bit more lively as we go moving forward with this virtual learning. So remember, absolutism is a concept that all kings and queens have absolute power and no one can question it. In Russia, this also happens, not just in Europe. And the main and most famous absolute ruler of Russia is Peter the Great. Excuse me. So we're going to discuss Peter the Great for today. Today is March. Let me check the date. March 24th. And this is for world history. If you are a U.S. student and you're watching this video, you are on the wrong video. So Peter the Great's background. Russia had labored for several centuries under Mongol domination, a domination that served to deepen Russia's separation from Western Europe. The Mongol yoke was finally overthrown in 1480 by Russia's first Tsar, Ivan III. So Tsar is their word for king. It is a derivative of the word Caesar, like from ancient Greece. By the late 1600s, Peter the Great engaged in a major campaign both to modernize and westernize his country. Peter pursued his goals by traveling to the Netherlands to do a little industrial espionage or some spying. He disguised himself as a peasant and worked in the Dutch shipbuilding industry. In reality, no one was fooled by Peter's disguise. He stood almost 7 feet tall, and it's pretty tough to disguise that. The Dutch had the largest shipyard in the world, and Peter learned a lot about the industry and about Western culture. Peter also spent time in France and England, observing how their economies functioned. While in France, Peter visited Versailles. He must have been very impressed with the French culture and society, because many of the changes he implemented at home were reflective of the French. Another reason for Peter's European tour was to meet with other monarchs and rally support for Russia against the Ottoman Turks. So Ottoman Empire comes from what is now Turkey. The Ottoman Empire had land Peter wanted. As it turned out, the Europeans were more concerned with events in Europe, and Peter did not achieve his goal. Peter believed that the political, military, and economic changes in Western Europe were beginning to move it ahead of other areas of the world. Peter also believed that Russia had long been dominated by Eastern, Byzantine and Mongol influences, and had largely been cut off from Western contact. Finally, he believed it was essential to modernize Russia to keep up with the increasing domination of the West. Thus, he felt Russia must create industry to make the economy more sophisticated. Part of creating a more sophisticated economy would include increased contact in the form of trade with the West. In order to increase trade, Russia needed ports and a fleet of ships, which necessitated a shipbuilding industry. Peter, in many ways, was a bold and visionary monarch for Russia. He has recognized some of Russia's shortcomings, and he took aggressive steps to rectify them. Peter attempted to get closer communication with the West and began development of industry in Russia. He also began development of modern weapons. However, for all his insight, Peter had a dark side. He bullied people in order to get his way and could become extremely violent, especially when drinking. He was paranoid and thought his son was plotting against him. He eventually had his son arrested and tortured to death. So that is the reading for today. There are questions also attached. If you have any questions, please message me on OnCourse. Remember that OnCourse, we're using OnCourse in this class, not Google Classroom. Eventually, I'm thinking the district, not this year, maybe next year, will be OnCourse only, because that's the way it seems to be going. Have a good day, and I will speak to you again tomorrow.